Hi, and welcome to another episode of Fitness and Friends. I am your humble host, Dr. Bob Ruano. My guest today is Pete Mongeau, and he'll be joining us in just a moment live from Alpharetta, Georgia. But first, I wanted to lay the groundwork for our conversation today. If you were just going by his social media bio, you'd assume this hard-charging, passionate alpha male was just born for success. He was a standout college athlete who could have gone to play minor league hockey and perhaps beyond. He chose to get into software sales instead, where he became ultra successful, earning millions of dollars. He was married, had a daughter, ... He found a passion for coaching and CrossFit, so he quit his software sales position, opened a gym, and lived happily ever after. If you were to assume all that, you'd of course be wildly mistaken, because the path to success, however you define that, is rarely linear. What's not described in that social media bio was that ... It was full of addiction, reckless behavior, lack of self-control, destruction of close relationships, and near loss of life. Here to share his cautionary tale with us today is my good friend, Pete Mongeau. Pete, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So
once again, I'm a little bit jealous of that intro. You look pretty good there.
Hey, did you notice that Wadapalooza picture in there?
I did. I got in one of the photos. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So you're there every week.
Yeah,
you're in that every week.
Awesome. I love it.
So that intro, as I described, is that is that accurate?
I mean, it's accurate for the social media.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, and that's what I meant. I mean, all right. So before we get into it, though,
it makes me sad. It makes me kind of sad to hear it.
I didn't mean to do that because I think in the end it's a beautiful story and a powerful one at that. So we'll get to that. But I wanted to share first with the viewers, how our paths crossed. And so what's not mentioned in there is Pete is an elite CrossFit athlete in the Masters divisions. He won't admit to that, but he is, and he's one of those guys who I'd always keep an eye on. As I was leaderboarding, what did Mongeau do? For this particular workout. And we had the chance to meet and compete in 2017 or 2018. I think we were kind of throwing around which date that was, and not knowing you personally, only seeing your scores and things that you post, there's intimidation, and so when I got a chance to meet you, here's this big dude, looked pretty grisly. I know he had an MMA background, nobody you wanted to mess with, and and after meeting him, like, man, this guy's a true gentleman. So anyway, that's how we met, and actually we've in that group of individuals competing in that 2018 Wadapalooza competition, we've stayed close. We talk literally on a daily basis. Matter of fact, I can't keep up with all the conversations in that thread that we've had going on since then. What started as just a way of bantering back and forth about who's cheating, who's doing poor reps, etc., has turned into. I mean, we're talking politics. We're talking personal things we share with one another, and as a result, my wife is the one who actually coined the phrase CrossFit hens. So she's like, you guys are on the phone constantly, like a bunch of hens pecking all the time. So I don't know if you knew that. That's where the name came from.
That's awesome.
So anyways, Pete, welcome to the show. So give us the rundown. I didn't realize you were an excellent hockey player as well prior to all this.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I really consider this an honor to be able to share some of my story. When you asked me to do this, there was absolutely no hesitation in my mind that now was the perfect time for me to share my story and kind of explain to folks, a little bit about what it looks like on the other side of that mess that I created for myself. But yeah, in the beginning, New England prep school kid, everybody, in the first prep school, I went to a couple of them, but the first, school, the kids are all drafted. We had, I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to play in the NHL. I mean, there was nothing in my mind that said I wasn't going to do that. I didn't know what the next step was, whether it was college or the Olympics or whatever, but I had, you couldn't tell me that anything was different.
Right.
Now, ultimately, I wound up in a school in Vermont, playing hockey up there, and wound up being an All-American, ECAC All-American first team. Was the captain of the hockey team. Got my first taste of media stuff. Did a lot of interviews and things like that, which was kind of fun, and really just got the chance to, kind of be a big fish in a little pond.
You had mentioned you felt like everything was almost given to you at that point too. So far as
I mean, as far as when I look back at it, I had a lot of talent, and that talent, I honestly don't remember school being an issue. Everybody says you went to college. I'm like, yeah, I did. I studied ice hockey. But I know I went to class. I showed up for class. I even had teachers that loved the hockey team that, I think that I got better grades just because I was on the hockey team.
Right.
I mean, that was it. But, so I never had any failure, in my life. I always had success, and I always just assumed that I was going to be successful.
Right.
I decided, I got invited to the, Waterloo Blackhawks, like the United States Hockey League, like a little mini camp during the summer, after my senior year. Went there, just decided that this just wasn't my thing. Wasn't interested in the low pay and the amount of work that they wanted you to put in. And actually I kind of, from a sports standpoint, I had kind of gotten burnt out of the business side of athletics, meaning all through college. And then hockey just wasn't as much fun. It was work.
Right.
Moved to Atlanta, and, one thing led to another. Met this guy that was a software sales genius, right, so to speak. And this is like 1996, 97. He's like, hey, I want you to come work for me and sell some software. And I'm at this time, literally, I don't even have a computer, right? I had to go to an internet cafe, pay by the dollar to learn what a computer was. I had no idea. And yes, I went to college and I still had no idea what a computer was. Right. And he said, to me in the interview, we're going to have you sell this software. It's related to this company called Microsoft. And we think potentially that it has, that company has some potential. Right.
Genius
so this
friend
was like 90s. Yeah. Huh?
I said a genius friend you got there.
Yeah, right. So this is like 97 or something like that, and all of a sudden I'm traveling all over the Southeast and somewhat of Latin America, Mexico, everything like that. And everywhere I go, it's me and the Microsoft sales rep, and we're selling software to basically validate Microsoft's existence in the business world, right? Because at that time, Microsoft was just considered something for like a home PC type thing. And so, I was in meetings all the time where people would say, hey, imagine if we could sell XYZ online. Imagine if at Home Depot, I'd be at a meeting and they'd be like, imagine if we could actually list our products online and people could see what's in the store. And that was the meetings that we were having. And, fast forward to today, that's just like second nature now,
sure.
Right? Everybody expects that. So obviously, selling tons of stuff, making tons of money, and once again, having tons of success, and really no skin in the game. I just figured that this was natural. This was normal. And so I never had any accountability built into my life. So when things started to, when I started to believe my own BS, and really, I don't know how to explain it besides the fact that I just really believed my own BS. Right. And nothing could stop me. I didn't listen to anybody. I was right now all of the time, because obviously I made plenty of money, so I must be right.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like, so my validation was completely by how much money was in the bank.
Yeah.
And the fact that, Bob, if you and I were friends then, and I said, let's go to Vegas, and you were like, but it's 8:00. I'm like, so what?
Yeah.
That's how it was. And so then the drugs started to enter into my life. And also, there's a lot of people out in this world that, will take advantage of that situation.
Well, I was going to say you were kind of a meal ticket to like your crew.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like that's how it became, and certainly, you know, without being disrespectful to my ex-wife, I'm pretty sure that's how our relationship developed, right? Because I was the center of attention. But I was only the center of attention because I had enough money to be the center of attention. And so it goes back to that whole thing with athletics, right? It was like, I had that I was the center of attention in college, right? Because of sports.
Right. And
now I'm the center of attention because of money. So really nothing changed. Except for the fact that, you know, when you start to do, cocaine every single day, well, you know, things are going to change sooner or later.
Right.
And you know, and they did. So, you know, when that drug stopped working, I needed something stronger. Right. So then all of a sudden it's crystal meth. So, you know, I'd be going into meetings high as a kite, or flying back and forth across the country and doing drugs on the plane or whatever. It doesn't matter. To me, I was nonstop, full-time, 100% wide open throttle.
Now, what was the motivation initially? I mean, did you feel like you were, was an exhaustion, so you wanted to pick me up? Was it you got more attention, when the drugs were in play, or?
You know, I think that it was a combination, to be honest with you. Yeah. I think that the two things. One is that somewhere along the lines, I wasn't happy with whatever I had created.
Okay.
And then on the flip side of all of that, I absolutely had the ability to go out. You know, I'm 28 years, like, let's call me 28 at this time, 29 years old.
Okay.
Living in buying, you know, owning my own home, owning my own cars and everything like that, living in probably one of the most in Buckhead,
Yeah.
Like if you don't know the Atlanta area, the Buckhead's like, it's where it's at. Right. And so for me, I had the ability to do it. So the only problem with having the ability is that at 3:00 in the morning, when you finally come home, you're like, well, I got to be up. I got to be on a plane at 7.
Yeah.
I got to be at the airport at 5. So, well, shit, I might as well, excuse my language. I might as well not go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I might as well just keep going. And so, and again, my mentality, my whole life has always been, full throttle.
Yeah.
You know, no, there's no brakes. It's all gas.
Yeah.
So with that being, you know, that whole combination, it's only time will tell, right? You'll blow up somewhere, something will happen. So ultimately what happened was I had, you know, a run-in with the police. And that turned into multiple run-ins with the police. So from my standpoint, when you had money, you can buy you have an attorney and everything like that, but it does slow you down.
Yeah.
And it slows you down because it now becomes starting to weigh on your mind. Now
you mentioned you had a, were you married at the time? Or was that
so by 2000 and I hate to say this because I don't even remember, that's how much of a blur it is.
Yeah.
But in the early 2000s, right around 9/11, that type of frame, I had gotten married, you know, again, get married in Las Vegas, probably to somebody that I didn't even know. Really, I didn't know her. And start this wedding or this mismarried life with just somebody that I had been partying with. So I just wasn't the greatest husband in the world at that time either. And so that's when, you know, I'm traveling and we kind of speed this whole thing forward. 2004, I'm in the delivery room. My wife's pregnant. She's having our first child. And lo and behold, my daughter comes born, and she is not white. She is black. And my wife is white. So now here's the thing. This is the first time in my entire life that my ego has been fully adjusted. Right?
Fully adjusted.
Yeah. And so I walked out of the delivery room. I still remember to this day. I walked down to the parking lot where my car was, opened up the glove box or whatever, and had a little bag of dope in there, and I got high, and I went on like an 8-year bender.
8 years.
And I literally, well, actually wasn't quite 8 because I got sober in 2009. So about 6 years. But that whole process, I remember it like it was yesterday, because I remember being in the parking deck. And it's actually, ironically enough, like the same, hospital where I spent a bunch of time in the parking deck with Karen and her illness now. Yeah. But I got in the car and I never looked back. And I literally went again full throttle and decided that I was going to just basically party until I ran out of money.
Yeah.
And spend every single cent I had, and destroy any semblance of a life that I had at that point in time. So maybe it was my idea of trying to, I don't know, maybe I was trying to kill myself. Who knows?
Right.
Or maybe I just didn't have I didn't have what it took to kill myself. So I was just going to go ahead and destroy myself.
To scuttle the ship. Yeah.
And along those lines, I wound up destroying every single relationship known to mankind that I had, with my parents, with my sisters, with my brother-in-laws, you name it.
I'm sure they confronted you multiple times. Like, what are you doing, Pete? And
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And multiple lifelines too, right? I would get arrested, and they would let me out of jail, or I would get bonded out or whatever. And obviously you can't hold a job at this point in time, but I really didn't need a job because I still had money to spend. So it just became this vicious cycle, that just was it's like going down a drain really, really slowly.
Yeah.
Right. To the point where, I wound up homeless, completely homeless, living in an old garage, literally no water, no nothing like that. Just keep it as raw as possible, like pissing in a cup type thing. Like just basically I had nothing. So from everything to absolutely nothing, and really, and no friends, no family that wanted to talk to me at the time, right? Because I burned all those bridges, and not a cent to my name, unless I went out and somehow sold some drugs or did whatever I needed to do to either eat or sleep that night or whatever, or find a place to sleep or find a place, something to eat. I wasn't really interested in eating as much as I was interested in probably just getting high again.
Right.
Yeah. So, once again, though, full throttle, right? So like if the theme of my life has always been full throttle, was in jail, wound up, going to court. At this point in time, I couldn't afford an attorney anymore. And this time of all the other times I was able to kind of slip through somehow, this time the guy said, enough's enough. You're looking at the rest of your life in prison. And that, at that point in time, I still remember that courtroom. I remember everything about the courtroom, and it wasn't a decision that needed to be made that day, but he made it very clear that, unless something changed, within the next, before I went back to court the next time, and I was still in jail at that time, right? Or whatever you want to call it. I spent about a year in there waiting for all this stuff. So I had all this time to think, right? and you know, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that whole feeling, right? Of being in, it's jail, prison, whatever is horrible.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's probably the worst experience, regardless of what anybody does, that you could, at least for me anyways, the amount of anxiety that you have, or that I have, was just, it's something I didn't even know I had inside of me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, started going to some AA meetings while I was locked up, and I thought maybe that was going to be the tip. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do or how I was going to do it. I literally managed to get a hold of an old contact of mine, and you know, and through, when I came through the jail, like through the, you know, payphone system, she answered the phone. She got me introduced to a rehab facility. I had my attorney present the rehab to the judge, and he signed off on it. So about I don't know, a month or so later, they brought me to this rehab facility, and you know, in handcuffs, and dropped me off at the front of the facility with the police and everything like that. And they didn't just, it wasn't just like one police officer dropping me off. Like they are like in their full combat gear. I mean, like, you think that I ruined the world.
Like Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, exactly. And the woman, I remember, Marilyn Maddox, a wonderful woman. I sat down with her, and she said, "You can come here, but it's $800 and I need payment right now." Mm-hmm. And the police are standing there. I'm sitting down. I have no money, mm-hmm. like zero. And so I'm like, can I make a couple phone calls? And got on the phone, called my dad. He told me to, you know, F off, and he didn't believe a damn thing I was doing, and he hung up on me. Mm-hmm. So there was that one. Tried a few other people, same response. Finally got a hold of my sister, Barbara. And she said, "I'll pay half." Mm-hmm. I believe that was the words. And so I asked Marilyn if she'd take half, and she said, "I'll take half today. I need their second half by Monday." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, I got it. I'll figure it out. And here it is, like my addict mind. I'm going to do something crazy, whatever it was. Yeah. I'm going to get it done. You know, one thing I said, okay, the police leave. They leave me there. I'm free finally, after being, you know, locked up for, I guess, well over a year.
Right.
And that weekend, there was a guy in my, a guy by the name of Eric Swain, and I'll never forget it. He's like, "I know how you can make the $400." And I'm like, "Listen, here we go." Like, it's just like, you know, like one junkie talking to another junkie, basically. Yeah. And I'm like, "What you got for me?" And so he's like, he had about $20, and we went out and bought some spray paint and some stencils. And he said, "We're going to drive around to all these houses in this neighborhood, and we're going to paint the number on underneath their mailbox for $20 each. And all you got to do is go up to the door, knock on the door, ask them if we can do it, and if they're interested, and we'll paint it right there." Yeah. And we did. I did that and started knocking, and we just kept knocking and knocking and knocking, and I knocked for 2 days straight until we got the $400. Had to pay for all the paint and everything like that. Yeah. And Monday morning gave Marilyn the second payment, and I had 30 days to figure out how to come up with the next $800. Yeah. You know, but at least I was on the right path. Yeah. Right. So I guess the point of all of that is that when your back's up against the wall, or you're finally sick of doing the same thing, you're capable of almost anything. Yeah.
Well, and that's really, that seems like that's been your mentality. You use that, like you said, it's, and maybe for a lot of people, they they can't dig deep enough, or they don't have that grit mentality that maybe that you possess. And so, like, to turn that train wreck around, it's pretty impressive, Pete. You know?
Well, I appreciate it, and I guess it took a lot of people and a lot of assistance along the way for that to happen. It wasn't like I did it by myself. Thankfully, I was able to piecemeal together some jobs. But you can imagine, even I guess we're going back 2009 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And again, that's the hard part for me, is everything's so blurry.
Yeah.
Like, I really can't remember what happened from probably 1999 to probably 2008. It's just a complete blur.
When we were talking earlier, you said that when you were faced with the potential of spending 80 years in jail, that was what was thrown at you initially, right? 80 years or something crazy.
Yeah, basically the rest of my life at that point in
time. Pete told me earlier, he said, well, if I'm going to be spending time in jail, this is the way this guy thinks. If I'm going to be spending the rest of my life in jail, I need to learn how to defend myself. And so you hooked up with, it was a kickboxing dojo or something, and asked, what is the most fierce fighting style there is?
Yeah.
And that
totally.
Yeah,
so I had no aspirations of boxing or anything like that. I literally just wanted to know what was the most violent form of hand-to-hand combat that someone would teach me in the shortest period amount of time, because I was absolutely convinced that, one, I didn't have any faith in myself that I could actually go through the program. Because, mind you, not only did I have to complete the rehab program, which turned out to be 18 months of rehab, like in-house rehab, not like going to Malibu and doing 30 days and I'm cured.
Right.
Like, we're talking almost 2 years of rehab, and curfews and everything like that. Okay, that's totally fine. It's way better than prison. But and then an additional 8 years of mandatory probation check-ins, right? So, like, I didn't think I had it in me.
Yeah.
I really did not think that I could go the entire time in my life, or 8 more years, 7 more years, or whatever I had left. I can't remember exactly what the things are. Thank God it's over now.
Yeah.
But, like, I would go into, like, complete cold sweats in a car if a police officer even was within 15 feet of my vehicle and I'm at a light.
Yeah.
I would just, like, total PTSD type thing. And I just didn't think I had it in me. So yeah, I figured out, I said, hey, I need to figure this out. I need to figure this out because I literally need to learn how to protect myself. And I had already been in countless brawls, or whatever you want to call it, in jail already, because and this is a whole different story, but, like, there's inside those walls, there's, like, very, very strict rules as far as, like, every race has its own little group and they don't cross each other. And like, it's pretty bad, in my opinion. And so, like, those things boil over quite often, and you have to you got to protect yourself, or you got to be able to protect yourself. And this is coming from a guy that, at one point in time led the country in penalty minutes in college hockey, right? Like, I had no problem fighting. Right. I absolutely loved it, right? Yeah. But I literally felt like I could not protect myself in this scenario, and I needed to figure out how to fight. So yeah, I learned how to
Muay Thai.
I learned Muay Thai. Yeah, Muay Thai. And ironically enough, it wasn't enough. I actually had to. Not only did I have to learn it, but then I decided I'm going to go ahead and fight in the cage or fight in the ring. And I even had to go get my probation officer to sign off on me to drive to South Carolina for a fight at 10 o'clock at night in a cage against a guy that was like 250 pounds. I was like 190, maybe 200 at the time. And it was like in the parking lot at the Quaker Steak and Lube. I'll never forget it. And there's a gazillion people screaming, drunk, whatever. And here I am. I'm like, well, you know what? It's full throttle again.
Yeah.
Like I am, like here's my life. It's full throttle. And so I asked myself the question right around that whole period of time. I said, okay, I can go back into software sales if they'll take me, right? Which was maybe not, because I had recruiters actually calling me, ironically enough. Or I said to myself, in one moment, I said, well, what is the thing that made you the most happy? And you enjoyed the most? And I said to myself, I said, it was the locker room of my hockey team. Like, I loved that feeling of being in the locker room. I loved the feeling of being able to kind of jaw back and forth with people. I love the feeling of the competitive side of what it feels like to even have like a teammate, but you also are like, man, he's so much better than I am at that. And that kind of interpersonal, like competitive side of things like that. We're competitors, but we're friends.
Right. The camaraderie,
and then I can't explain to you the feeling that I have or had when I would go into the rink. Didn't matter what was going on outside of the world.
Right.
As soon as I walked into that rink, I was 100% focused on my task. So I wanted to figure out a way to share that experience with others. And so, fast forward, that's why I opened the gym, was that, and called it Zanshin, right? Zanshin's a ready, constant state of ready to awareness. It's that feeling you get right before the clock goes 3, 2, 1, where it's like you're hyper focused. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter if you've got bills to pay or, kids got in trouble or whatever the thing is. Right at that point in time, your sole purpose is trying to figure out how to get through the next 10 minutes of that workout. So that's why, that's where I figured, you know what, not only can I stay sober because I'm going to be doing my service work every day and trying to help other people, but I'm also going to be able to share with them the same experience that I had, which made me the happiest. Right?
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like that trip to that dojo or that type of training, you found a passion within you, like a much better direction. How can I help people? And it was coaching. Not only that, I think you had mentioned too, that's where you met the love of your life as well. The early stages.
Yes. No, totally. Yeah. Well, I also knew, and it's not really a secret, right, that when I wasn't learning how to do Muay Thai, I was roofing houses. I was spraying lawns with chemicals, which I constantly sprayed myself in the face with that hose. I can't tell you how many times, right? I worked landscaping, and we're talking Atlanta in the middle of the summer. And it's not that I'm like, okay, all of these jobs are jobs that they will hire me because of my background.
Right.
And none of them are jobs that I want to do.
Yeah.
Like it just, it's no slight to those jobs. It's just not what I wanted to do. So I needed to find a job that would pay me potentially, but at the same time that I could also maintain my sobriety, and also enjoy myself just a little bit. So I knew that by going into any type of personal training or anything like that, I wasn't going to become a millionaire. But I was okay with that, just based on the fact that I didn't do that well with money the first time around anyway, so I was okay with not having money the second time around.
So we got we're working on what, Pete? 13 years now, huh?
Yeah. And again, that's one of those things where every year I ask Karen, I'm like, is it, do I have 12 or do I have, like, it's one of those things where it's so convoluted to me. I have to go back and look at my arrest records actually to see where, where I was and what dates and about 13 years. And I feel great. I literally feel great. Not once, do I think about having a drink or doing drugs or anything like that. You have dreams every once in a while. Sometimes you'll have a dream that you fell off the wagon or something happened like that, and it's just a dream. It just happens. It's just the way life is.
Yeah.
But, and I think a lot of that has to do with whether or not you have a ton of anxiety or stress in your life with other things.
You know, again, just from through our conversations in the last couple of years, it seems like, well, you were fulfilled. Maybe those drugs and the alcohol, all of that was to fill a void that was lacking. But now, with the passion, with your gym, a beautiful looking facility, and then the love affair of you and Karen, you just seem really, really fulfilled, and that for me. That defines success. It's not the zeros in the bank account.
Yeah. So the zeros in the bank account do help for sure. And it's just like anything else. Like Karen this year, and she's gone through her stuff the last couple of years, and it's been a super struggle for her. But like. I guess it was last year, she's like, will you please buy a new truck? Right. And I was driving the same truck that I bought when I got sober, like literally the same exact truck. I had been driving it, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this truck. It gets me from point A to point B. It's very simple. Right. And she's like, you work so hard. You really deserve to buy yourself something and appreciate it. And I tell you what, every time I bought a new Ram truck, and I love it, and every time I get in it, I'm super proud of myself, or I'm super proud of being able to drive it to the gym. Whatever the case may be, it just makes me feel just a touch bit more accomplished than my old truck, which the windows didn't work, the AC didn't work, nothing worked. But it worked. But the car got me to where I needed to go.
It's gratitude. Yeah. When you could have bought whatever car, truck you wanted back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, but probably didn't have the appreciation or like you said, the gratitude that you have now. Well, let me ask you one thing. No doubt. There's like two finishing questions I usually ask, but I don't think we need to go there with this one. I think a more important question is, if somebody is struggling, and dealing with what you went through, I mean, what would your advice be to them? What could they do today, right now?
Wow, that's an amazing question. The first thing that they absolutely could do is try to express to someone else how they feel. That's probably the most difficult thing to do, because as an addict, we sometimes feel different than everybody else. And like no one will understand. And ironically enough, there's a lot of us out there, and a lot of us you don't have to be addicted to drugs to be an addict, right? Like you could be addicted to a lot of other things, or you could have your own things going on in the world. And the reality of it is this, that the principles of things like AA and so forth really, really work in almost any environment, right? And the like you and I talked about at one point in time, if someone's having an issue, they need to reach out to somebody else, and really try and do their best to just explain how they're feeling. If they can get some of that off their chest, I think they'd be way better off than trying to hold it all in and then hide it. I think that's really the biggest thing, is that we have a tendency to hide our pain or our emotion, and then we allow that to boil over, and then worse, bad things can happen. One of the things that, and I'll share this real quick, is that one of the things that I'm passionate about this year is that I'm beginning to work on a program that's going to allow people, we're going to try and set up a scholarship program which will allow people to, in that scenario, come into the gym and maybe have a scholarship membership for a couple months or whatever. Get some people involved and some businesses involved, and I'm working on the grassroots of that now. I've always wanted to do that, where we can provide a community aspect and a community gym, and give people that, newly divorced, or the kid that's stuck at home because both parents work and he really wants to, or she really wants to work out. Any of those things, we can fill out an application get a scholarship, get into the gym, get around other healthy people,
Right.
And just being in that healthy community, I think is going to be super beneficial to a lot of people.
I love that, Pete. And I think conversations like this really open up and create opportunity for those who, maybe kind of keeping those skeletons in the closet, getting them out and knowing they're not alone. And somebody who's been through it and come out the other side, like yourself, I think is a great resource. So, Pete, again, thanks for joining me today. There's a lot of other places we could go with this one, so we might have to do a follow-up, maybe with the hens here later down the road. But again,
maybe not. Absolutely. There's a lot. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack.
Yep. All right, Pete. I'll call you in just a little bit. We'll wrap up, but we'll say goodbye here to our viewers, and I'll talk to you in just a bit.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, Pete. Thanks, buddy.
You bet.
And thank you all for joining. If it's an addiction, whether it's a drug or alcohol or maybe food, whatever your cross that you're bearing, reach out, get some assistance, get some help, talk about it, because that will really inspire you to continue on. And let's just say it is a weight loss issue. Don't make big changes. Don't go on this calorie restrictive diet or exercise 7 days a week. It's the small changes, the small decisions that we make day in, day out, thousands of them, that will create these tiny threads that combine will create a twine that is unbreakable and keep you on your path to whatever goals or successes, however you define that is. Hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for joining us.